Hi and welcome one and all to this edition of Atempo Webinar session, where today we'll be examining the question of managing massive amounts of unstructured data, how to back up and migrate this data. My name is Nick Crisp, Marketing Department at Atempo, and I'm joined today by two colleagues from the US, Mike Oakes, Senior Pre-Sales Engineer. Good morning, Mike.
Good morning, everyone.
And Michael Carrigan.
Good morning.
Territory Manager, also based out in California. So we have a 30-minute session today, and we will take questions. The easiest thing, because there are quite a few people enrolled in the session, is for you to use the chat in Zoom, and we'll try and answer the questions, and we have 4 or 5 minutes at the end of the session to answer your questions. There will be a few case studies handled by Mike, but first of all, I'll hand over to Michael, who will give us the big picture. So thanks, Michael. Over to you.
Thank you, Nick. Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon or good evening, depending on where you are. Thank you very much for joining. We definitely appreciate your time. Our plan today is to spend some time speaking about accelerated data growth, the challenges that go with this growth, and then we're going to introduce Atempo's Miria application platform based on a proven high-performance scalable architecture to address these challenges. Following a brief introduction, my colleague Mike Oakes will introduce some use cases where Miria has been deployed to address some specific challenges. But first, we'd like to discuss the growth in data. Companies have faced the challenges of data growth, as we all know, for many years. However, the increases have actually outpaced projections because data has become integral to the economic growth of innovative businesses. As you can see from this slide, digital transformation has accelerated due to massive use of intelligent data in virtually all aspects of business. In the past, there were a few industries like healthcare, media and entertainment, which were fueling the growth of large capacity of unstructured data for patient information, health research, and video developments. But today, virtually every industry is collecting information from IoT to data for development of artificial intelligence, to smart cars, to regulatory requirements for financial services, and virtually any other information that can be used to enhance their respective business or customer experience. A simple example of this, and it's on the screen where you see 4K, an example of media entertainment images acquired during the 2K era for movie production would result in a 2-hour movie taking up 234 gigabytes of space. With 4K acquisition, the same movie would require 6,000 gigabytes or 6 terabytes, and at 8K, it's 24,000 gigabytes. So you can see there's an incredible increase in data just in that one example. Let's take a look at the statistics associated with the growth. IDC publishes this information, and they can see right from the top right-hand corner that the annual growth rate right now is 61% until 2025. That's for a total of 175 zettabytes, and as of 2018, there was 33. Now, the 175 zettabytes actually is a 9% increase over last year's projections, so we're not even keeping up with the projections that well. At any rate, 175 zettabytes, 80% of this will be unstructured data. And unstructured data is clearly the data information that is fueling the analytics and projections and economic realities for many, many companies. Of this data, it's very interesting also to note that approximately 50% will be in the cloud, and about 50% will be still on-prem. That may be a bit of a surprise to some who are seeing the cloud utilization increase dramatically, but there's going to be equal amount also kept on-prem. And the last stat, which is interesting, is 30% of it will be used on a real-time basis. So clearly, there is the data explosion that we've expected and heard about for many years just continues to increase, and with that, the complexities of dealing with that. So there are numerous challenges that must be overcome to manage this data from its origin to end of life. We'll start with just the basic one that has been used for many, many, many years, which is just typical data protection. Data protection in the form of backup, data protection in the form of disaster recovery, and then long-term data protection. It's not there's not a lot of applications out there that can handle this area of the challenge, but it's whether they can scale and perform equal to the projections that we just saw. That's really a critical area in this. The next thing is in hybrid storages. We're going to have to manage many different kinds of storage in order to, one, provide the SLAs that we need to our users, and secondly, control the costs. The costs associated with production level storage simply can't be managed over a long period of time. So the next thing is data availability. Data availability is about many companies today have projects that are being managed in or contributed to all over the world. And therefore, the data needs to be directly accessed wherever it's possible in order to make that efficient and keep the teams in check while they are managing these large projects. So data needs to be moved to where it can be directly accessed in a timely manner. Very interesting problem and challenge to solve. Data migration. And as we've all seen the growth of data, we've also increased the size of the disk footprint, whether it be NAS or object storage or other types. They continue to grow, and as they continue to grow, they also reach an age where they age out and it's end of life, and they have to be migrated to the next technology. And in doing that, in the past, there's been very either CLI-based or shared service-based kind of opportunities to make that happen. But in today's world, with multi-petabytes being the prime example of something that needs to be migrated, you simply can't not use those tools. They simply do not have the ability to use the bandwidth that's available in order to make a migration a reality. And last, which really is it's a challenge that goes across all of the challenges and requirements, is flexibility and scalability. In order for any of these things to work, we need to have an architecture that can perform in a manner that keeps up with the growth in data that we've seen on the original slides. Without that, you really are not able to accomplish in a day what needs to be handled. So going forward, these applications need to be able to perform and scale up to moving data in amounts of many gigabytes per second. So with that, we are introducing Miria today, which Mike will spend some time on in a moment. But Miria is a technology that benefits from a super high performance scalable platform that's been developed with recent applications from Atempo. Now we're adding additional applications on top of this platform, which will allow them to meet the challenges of growth and performance. Each of these applications will take full advantage of the Miria engine, designed to manage petabytes of data and billions of files. With that, I'd like to ask Mike to introduce some of the case studies that he has relative to meeting these challenges with Miria. Thank you, Mike.
Hey, thanks, Michael. Hey, good day, everybody. Thanks for taking time today with us. So real quick on the screen, Michael mentioned a couple different tools that were coming within the Miria platform, right? We're talking about backup and migration today, but we'll see also some Miria for data moving and Miria for archiving also was within the platform, but we're going to focus on backup and migration strictly for today. We'll have some use cases and we'll talk about, different storage applications and appliances we use while doing these different solutions. So that being said, first one, of course, Miria for backup, right? Talk about its challenges, talk about its use cases, a few key advantages, and how this really came about. So about several years ago, Atempo took a look at the evolving content and creation growth rates, as Micah was talking about earlier, right? And we realized the current methodology being used by the market was really not going to be able to keep pace, right? So protecting terabytes of data was now becoming and managing hundreds of petabytes, right? Billions of files. And all that data we could see needed to be accessible just about from anywhere, whenever, right? Older solutions, they did a great job at large file workflows for backup and for archive. But with a small to large workflow, they actually became slow and cumbersome to manage, right? So, what we did is also took a look at some other tools that were being used in the market. Some of the vendors were still using like NDMP to secure old NAS platforms, right? Great protocol developed in the 90s, adopted by most of the protocol solutions, long in the tooth, but it also didn't really meet some of the new current requirements. One of the biggest ones was being able to do a cross-restore incremental backups forever, right? So managing billions of files, petabytes of unstructured data. This is where Miria was designed and developed to address these, but also to take advantage of some of the new infrastructures that are coming along, right? network speeds have changed. Originally, we got to 10 gigabit, right? But now we went from 10 to 40 to 100, 200, 400, right? So now we can take advantage of NFS, SMB, S3, Swift, Object Store. All of this technology can be used for backup, archive, migration without having to have secondary infrastructures. You don't need to have a fiber channel and an IP-based backbone anymore. We can do it all over IP. We can do it over fiber, we can do it over IP, but you can simplify your infrastructure, right? And lastly, what we're going to do here is, and I said we're going to look at a few use cases. We'll start here now with the first one. So this one here was a use case with Isilon, right? And this is an interesting one. So a couple of years ago, we went to IBC and we met with this customer, and they were talking about how they had a petabyte of Isilon, right? And they needed and were looking for a way to facilitate a second copy of their data to another Isilon via like an S3 for ECS buckets. And as you can see in some of their requirements, right, they had the, solution must be secure, it had billions of files, connectivity to Isilon, of course, S3 protocol, and incremental forever to prevent long scans of the Isilon, as well as to prevent impact to users doing production workflow. So they've been testing several solutions. None of them were really panning out. And after our meeting at IBC, they allowed Atempo to come in and perform an on-site POC. So, and with that, actually with our solution we were demonstrating, it has 2 data movers and 1 Miria server. Data movers, of course, they are the ones that are facilitating all the movement of data. And we were able to achieve 700 plus megabytes a second and ability with our fast scan and snapshots to ensure incremental forevers. And we'll talk about fast scan in depth a little bit later. Not to impact the production user, right? So now that they realized they could do the requirements, and this is the interesting part, they put it out for public tender. And we didn't win. It went to a competitor who actually put their product in, and after some weeks of trying to tune and tweak, were not able to meet the customer requirements that were declared in the public tender. So we were asked to come back in, but since it was public, we had to do another POC, another benchmark, and again, prove with the same solution we can meet the requirements. And they put the solution into production, and we're quite happy with it. Now, one thing to notice in here, it talks about 700 megabytes per second during the POC. Data movers are capable of much more. I just want to make that clear. We're not limited to 700. Data movers can do well above 2 gigabytes a second. It was more the infrastructure and what the customer wanted to do in their workflow. So, second use case here. You may notice there's really no NAS per se, it's NFS backup, right? But we're going from a file system to a cluster, a WAS cluster. And this was actually an example with one of our DDN partners. They'd already installed their DDN grid scaler cluster, IBM's Spectrum Scale is the new name, right? Primary network storage space for that. And then they used their web object scaler as the source target, right? So, and this customer had some pretty specific requirements. A couple of the big ones, they need a single product, one throat to choke for backup and archive, as well as the ability, whatever that product is, to integrate with their API and CLI for automatic workflows, protect the file system attributes, and create multiple copies at the same time. And a big one for them was allowing the users, the researchers, to archive their own products. So with our solution, again, we had 2 backup Miria data movers here and a server, we're able to meet those requirements, as well as even protect the GPFS grid scaler attributes, right? And we used our fast scan for GPFS in this, which allows the GPFS ILM API to retrieve information on like newly created files, modified files, specific features in the processing of deleted files, right? This is what we call Miria True Image Recovery. And what True Image Recovery is basically, it's a function to restore the coherent state of the directory or the volume, actually, at a specific moment in time without having to restore the deleted files, right? So a couple things, a lot of us know, right? File system environments are usually very large, varied file sizes, directory and file counts, right? And again, you may have noticed we only use 2 data movers here, but if you notice in the technical requirements, we use quite a few cores, right? And the number of cores here is important. And we'll see as it goes along, well, in the migration phase as well, right? That allows you to achieve a high number of threads for scanning the GPS file system and improving latency and throughput. And this is all done with 2 data movers, right? And also allows for Miria to load balance jobs across the data movers, so we get maximum performance. In this case, about 7 terabytes per hour of data movement. So why Miria, right? Open architecture and scalable. Notice here we've got 3 different sites. These could be local in town, across the world, you know, basically anywhere you want, right? But with Miria, your data is not only protected, but it's fully manageable, and fully manageable anywhere in the world. You can prioritize your data placement. You can make 2 copies, 3 copies, use the cloud, use file system, use tape. Doesn't matter, right? You get to decide what data is protected, where it's protected, how it's protected, what cost-effective medium do you use to ensure your data is always accessible, right? And one of the critical things here, right, is with the vast amount of data, right, it's also being cost-effective, right? Because the guy in the corner office, the CIO and the CFO needs to ensure his data is protected, but they've got to do it efficient for the organizations, right? And we can do all of this and reduce complexity. Right? If you notice here, there's a single ADA Miria server, bottom right upper corner box. That's the server. You can have 1 server, you can have 2 for HA availability, but it's controlling the data movers, which are at each site, anywhere they're located worldwide, right? And you can expand and contract those data movers, add more, delete, change number of tasks, all to meet the workflows of each site and across the world. And one other quick note too, down bottom right, you'll see, you know, cloud storage, AWS, Azure. We work with both very effectively. Some quick benefits here, right? High performance scanning, right? The multiple cores move large volumes of data, billions of files, right? Petabytes of data in a mixed workflow, small and large file. You're not limited to one workflow size or the other. The fast scan feature available on most NASs as well as GPFS coming for Lustre. It takes advantage of the APIs and some native NAS storages as well as the snapshot features to ensure all we do after the initial scan is all we have to do is we'll take a snap of the delta change without having to walk the file system, move those changes in an incremental phase, or whatever happens to be the source target medium, move those changes over. So you're not impacting workflows and just taking the data required for that particular snap in time. Adding and deleting data movers, right? As we saw in that earlier slide, just previously, there was 2 data movers at each site, but I could have 2 at one, 3 at the other, 4 at a different one. And I can take them away and add them as needed as my workflows changes. Integration with, you know, Miria provides our GUI. There's CLI, there's web servers, and there's an API. All of that's available with the product. Most customers look at using the GUI. Choose to write your own API interface. You can, right? Centralized storage interface with Miria, a database interface, sorry, right? So it contains all of the file history, all of the ACLs, all of the files changed, all the files moved, all of that in our database. So when you need to go pull a file back, you can pull it from anywhere and put it to anywhere, not having to go rescan and look at where data is residing. And last thing, you can have a hot standby service should need be configured for 724, 365 availability of your data and your system. So that was backup. Real quickly now, I'm going to flip to migration. So again, challenges, use cases, and key advantages. Right, so we're talking, right, petabytes of scale for data migration. As we mentioned before, right, a few years back, took a look at our roots as an organization. We specialize in backup and archive. That was us, right? But we took a look at where the market was going. And as Michael mentioned, and this is really kind of important, 33 zettabytes of data created in 2018, and 5 times that, you know, by 2025, 175 zettabytes, and 80% of that being unstructured. And 30% of that needed to be in real time, so located somewhere in a facility where it could be accessed immediately. Previously, a lot of companies were using free software to perform migrations, right? But it really wasn't data that was considered to be DR or business critical. We quickly realized, though, that a new paradigm was needed for a platform to be able to address the upcoming, and I call it the data tsunami, just the amount of data that's being created. that's coming over our horizon, right? For not just for backup and archive, but how do you manage that data? How do you migrate it? How do you sync it? All those questions came into play. So when you need to migration, right? So I need to migrate because my storages, right, they're becoming obsolete. So much data is being created. I got to put it somewhere. I don't have enough room on storage A. I have new storage B, or I have cloud, or I have something else, right? So being able to take advantage of new storages and all that medium to be able to manage your data is essential, right? And building a platform that enables that seamless end-to-end management of the data was the design of Miria, right? So not only improving our archive and backup product, but creating these new feature sets that I talked about earlier. And the outcome of that was a true NAS, SMB, NFS file system cloud storage management product, right? i.e. Miria. So migration, always fun, right? So what we do here, and this is we call it a 3-step process, and we've broken it down here, right? So there's a preparation and planning phase. This is important, understanding, and we come in and we'll take a look at the data. We take a look at the infrastructure, both from source storage, target storage, how it's interconnected, what's on the source, right? And from that, we'll build a plan. That plan will detail how we're going to integrate, what we're going to integrate, how we're going to move, and that moves into the volume synchronization phase, right? Now, this volume synchronization phase may be a few hundred files, few million files and petabytes, which will move fairly quickly. Or maybe billions of files, which is going to take some time because they're smaller. And we'll see that in the use case, the differences, right? So during that phase, we're moving the data. We're constantly monitoring. We like to do it daily if we have access to the system, checking on the status and make sure everything's running well. It also has reporting. We'll kick out emails and errors to you or who you choose we send to, being the user or the partner that is involved with the migration. So everybody knows every day, what's happened, how much data was moved, how much data was scanned, et cetera. So you get daily reporting. And the final phase is the cutover. And this daily reporting becomes important because with the ability of fast scan with our product, while the initial scans will take some time because you don't know what's on the original source target, the cutover phase, we can judge how quickly that's going to happen. And that's because with fast scan, we're only taking delta changes from what's on the source target. We're knowing how long it's taken to scan, how long it's taken to move set data. Maybe it's 5 or 10 terabytes a day is changing and we're moving that. And we can actually gauge your cutover will take X amount of minutes or X amount of time. So you can schedule that downtime or read-only time for the source and flip everybody to the new target with relative confidence of how quickly it's going to happen. So the use cases for that, this first one here, right? This is a fairly routine migration for Miria. About, a petabyte of data. This is an Isilon cluster and about 20 million files. So not too bad, not too large. I know now saying a petabyte isn't large. It's kind of funny. This is a US-based customer, and we work with our Cumula, one of our technology partners, who's actually just announced the launch of a data migration services also based on Atempo's Miria solution, right? So the environment here, we, in some of the user requirements, right, minimum user downtime, right, last sync cannot exceed 12 hours, and this is where the fast scan comes into play. And limited performance scanning to avoid file system production issues. Again, fast scan, but also how we break tasks up in threads within jobs to ensure we get quick, efficient scanning and data transfer without impacting front-end users. So what we did here on this, and you'll notice down the bottom is some technical requirements that's talking about the data movers, and I'll go into those a little bit differently. They're a little larger than some of the backup ones. This one had 2 CPUs with 20 cores. And the reason why is what we did is with 2 basically Miria data movers, and we dedicated 2 nodes in the Isilon pool strictly for Miria to talk to. So we didn't impact production. But if you notice bullet number 2, right, we limited the number of parallel synchronization jobs to 4. What that means is with 2 data movers in our load balancing, every time a job, and this is all done automatically under the Miria that you can program in the GUI, and we do when we set it up, and you can change, right? Either 1 terabyte of data has been scanned or moved, or 500,000 files, and we'll spin up another job, and we'll put it on the next data mover. So we're load balancing across the data movers, but effectively taking is scanning and taking use of all the bandwidth available, but not overburdening the system to impact production. And you'll see here at the bottom, right? So it was about 1.25 petabytes when we actually scanned it. It took about 9 hours. Now that's not a fast scan, that's a direct scan. So 20 million files, about 9 hours. And when we did the original sync, it took us about 12 days, right? So did about 100 terabytes a day, so not bad. And then once that initial sync was done, the fast scan, right, was taking about 30 minutes. So to do a fast scan, and there wasn't a lot of change rate happening. So we're scanning, moving any data changed in less than 30 minutes. So that 12-hour window for cutover, we could do in a couple hours or less, depending on the customers cutting things over and repointing users. Now, this second use case, we kind of wanted to flip the script a little, right? This is the opposite of the first. It's not as large capacity. It's about half the size, 500 terabytes. You'll notice it's about 970 million files, and the bulk of them are small, all less than 8K or equal to 8K, right? So we had to have minimum user downtime. And again, every user or every facility, do not impact my users. And that's one of the key things. Migrate all my data, but do not impact my users. Cutover had to happen about 3 weeks after first implementation. So what we did here is we actually put in 4 data movers, 1 Miria server, 4 data movers, and balanced across those data movers all the jobs that needed to run. And we talked about threads before. In this case, you notice on slide 2 for this, right, we actually had parallel synchronization of 4 jobs, right? And actually up to 16. So we cranked it up a little. Instead of like the previous use case where it was just 4 jobs, we decided to go to 16 here because of the number of basically small files, right? And we took each job, limited to about 1 terabyte in size or 250 million files on a transfer. And those were load balanced. So when we're all running, you get 4 per data mover. So we're completely balanced across the data movers and taking effective use of all the bandwidth we can without impacting the users. And we did because of the small files, about 20 million files per day. So about 5 million per data mover. And then with the final cutover, again, fast scan. Once that initial sync's done, fast scan's able to scan just the delta changes and move them, enabling us a quick turnaround time for user cutover. So, what are the key benefits and features of Miria for migration? A little bit here, right? So, the automatic migration workflow, right, between heterogeneous storage systems. We support any NAS, and as long as we have connection to something with a network or some type of medium connection, we can support file systems, we can support cloud. Doesn't matter, right? Fast scan feature. It's available, as it says here, for most NASs, right, and some file systems. So this is a great tool because it allows you not only to take advantage of limit your bandwidth consumption, but also facilitates that incremental forever. So I'm not taking full backups constantly. I can just take those delta snaps for backups or for migrations and move those over, right? Automatic integrity checking. We do on a migration, on a read, we'll do a check or a computation of an XX hash 64 on the read. We'll then facilitate the data for the move. And on the right side, we'll recalculate another hash, XX64, and compare them. If they're good, data's committed. If it's not, the data's discarded, and you'll get a notice in the log saying, hey, there was an issue here with blah, a hash calculation, and then we continue on. It doesn't error out. The job will continue to progress. So, and then increase and reduce performance, adding data movers, changing the number of jobs and threads, all available under the GUI. So if the workload changes after we've started, instead of 5 terabytes a day change rate, it's 50, we can adapt. We can add more data movers. We can change the threads. That's not a stop of the migration. It's just we make a change in flight, right? And one important thing to note here, migration, it's a full end-to-end product suite, not only offering Atempo software, but we also often our seasoned professional, right, professional services team, that have designed and deployed these solutions just about anywhere in the world and of any size and scope. So with that, you're guaranteed you're getting someone that knows the migration workflow, knows how to get it done efficiently, and will get you to where you need to be in a short amount of time. So quickly wrapping up, and I know I've taken a lot of your time here, and thank you. So again, we talked about Miria for backup, Miria for migration. Two of the tools underneath the Miria product suite: data moving, right? Syncing, right? I need to keep file systems sync worldwide and cross-sync them. That's available. So I can sync from both sides, keep two file systems anywhere in the world with, with relative networking speed in sync, as well as we have Miria for archiving. So you can offload and archive long-term content anywhere you need to be in the world and free up your front-end production storage. All within the same server and data movers. All can do the same tasks. This one here, right? So we talked about the new challenge and requirements, right, in the exploding data creation world. But as Michael pointed out earlier, right, data protection is still key, right? Data is king. And without that, our organizations can fail, right? We don't get things out on time. We don't have an organization to come back to, right? And protecting that data against loss, whether it be human error, virus, floods, whatever, is critical, right? And management of that data, right? Taking advantage of all the tools on the market: hybrid storage, cloud, flash, tape, disk, whatever it happens to be, right? We work with all of them, right? In conjunction with data protection. So you can mix and match where your data is stored, prioritize data, right? And its placement. Multiple copies, cloud, Azure, we talk, AWS Glacier, we use those as well. File systems, NFS. And Miria enables you that versatility and flexibility. You get to decide where and when your assets are protected and how that's protected, right? And then next, data availability, right? That goes hand in hand with the protection, right? Ability to be able to address new requirements needs to be live and available across teams, architectures, geos, right? In case of disasters, you have to be able to call back data from anywhere to anywhere with Miria. As long as we can talk to it, it's defined within the Miria server, and we have access to it from a data mover, we can get it and we can put it somewhere. This is ensuring true 24/7, 365 data availability. And one of those major challenges with data availability is migration. That's the last stuff we talked about here earlier in the slides, right? Previously, it was not really a big deal to manually migrate a few hundred terabytes, when storage became obsolete or needed to be added to. But we're not talking about tens of gigabytes or terabytes anymore. We're talking about petabytes, right? Petabytes, hundreds of petabytes. And to address that challenge and all these challenges, that's why we developed the Miria software platform. Finally, quickly, the flexibility of the platform, right? Add data movers, remove data movers, add storage, remove storage, migrate to storage. All of that within the product. Now, some people can say, well, I spent so much time on this slide as well as others. It's really important, right? Because we're talking about, and we've all heard this term before, life cycle management of our data. But it's also the lifeblood of our organizations now, with as much as content's being created, right? And if that day comes when you need to pull something back, footage from Jakarta that may have been accidentally deleted or corrupted, right? If you're the administrator of the organization or the broadcast company that needs that data to go to air, right? You can't afford to miss your commitment, right? So you need to be able to pull it back at any time from wherever it's sitting so you can put it right back into use in production. And that's important. Always having the data available is critical to our infrastructure and our organizations today. And that's the key here with Miria. One last thing, I hope y'all are coming to NAB. If you are, please come by and see us at the booth. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Mike. Thanks, Michael. And thanks for the clarity and depth of those explanations. Lots of information thrown at you today, but I hope it was useful to everybody listening. Welcome to Miria. So a couple of questions maybe one for Michael, first of all. It's just about the solution, Miria itself. Is it available? If not, when will it be available, Michael?
Yes, Miria solution is deliverable today for at least a couple of the modules, migration and backup, and the others will be following soon.
Great. For you, Mike, a couple of questions. One on compatibility. You said that Miria was very flexible in terms of compatibility. A specific question on NetApp. What can we say about handling NetApp with Miria?
Oh, so we can use NetApp actually both as a source and a target. So you can use it on either side of your workflow. Fully compatible.
Okay. You also, Mike, mentioned, you were talking about UNIL, and you mentioned ESC. One slide you also pointed out that we do support AWS, S3 type cloud storage. Do we support any other cloud providers?
Yeah, so like you said, there's Amazon S3. You can take advantage of Glacier, all their features underneath that, as well as Microsoft Azure, and some of the local cloud products. I mean, you can like DDN's, WAS, we also interface with.
Okay, great. Thanks very much. As you mentioned, Mike, just at the end there, we will be, of course, present this year at NAB, other conferences later on in the year, more in the HPC environment, but those are the two big upcoming shows. NAB from the 8th to the 11th of April. Actually, Mike is talking on the Cumulo stand. I'm not quite sure which day, but he's doing a presentation on the joint Cumulo Atempo migration service. So that would be worth listening to, and stopping by on the Atempo booth, of course, to meet the team. If you have any other questions, be happy to take those. We have one question, yeah. The number of wins in terms of the solution Miria outside of the media environment, media space. Obviously, we're associated with M&E, but what could we say outside of that space? You want to take that?
Sure. So we have wins in the genome space, HPC. So it's been adopted across the market in just about all the verticals.
Okay. Basically, wherever there's data, we can do something.
Absolutely.
Okay. Right. I think we'll wrap it up there. We've just pushed over 40 minutes, so I think we'll draw everything to a close. Big thank you again to everybody who's participated. Thanks, Mike. Thanks, Michael, for taking the time to share this presentation. And there will be others, of course, on other Atempo solutions in the coming weeks. Don't hesitate to have a look at our website. Thanks to all. Speak to you soon. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye now.